Okay, so this video is like a speed download of what you need to do with your trainees with regards to the new curriculum. So number one, when you first meet with them at your initial meeting, you need to agree a PDP as you would do normally. You need to tell them that they will need 3 ESLEs every year from now on. They'll also need an MSF every year, which hasn't changed from previously. And they haven't actually got any fixed work-based post assessments to do now, but they will need to do at least one assessment every week for the whole year in order to cover all the specialty outcomes that they need to do. So that's hopefully not too onerous. Also just remind them that they now need to keep a really strict procedure logbook, which they haven't had to do previously. Over the course of the year, they'll have to do the assessments to match the specialty outcomes, as I've just mentioned. Any assessment can link with a specialty learning outcome, and it can be linked with more than one, but it's for the trainee to decide on that, very much trainee-led. When they come to be signed off by you, we use something called an Entrustment scale, which hopefully is far more intuitive than what we've done previously. Basically, it's a scale from 1 to 4, with 1 being they need direct supervision with you standing right next to them, to 4, no supervision at all. And just as a ballpark, ACCS trainees, you'd expect them to be about a level 2, ST3s and 4s would be a level 3, and ST6 expecting to be at level 4. So as well as their clinical specialty outcomes, they need to gain evidence towards their generic specialty learning outcomes. So this is research, teaching and education, quality improvement, and leadership, which is the new one, which you will have heard a lot about from Annette and Liam and Steve across the region already. So the educational supervisor is responsible for signing off the generic specialty learning outcomes. For research, they will be encouraged to do critical appraisal as they go. So when they're on the shop floor, if they find a question, something they don't know the answer to, they'll be encouraged to go away and do some specific focused critical appraisal on that, which means that you as a supervisor might then be presented with an applied critical appraisal form to fill in. So you're all going to have to be prepared to do that and remember your critical appraisal of old. They'll also have the opportunity to do things like journal clubs and all the e-learning that's available on that subject. I'm not going to talk too much about leadership here because that has been done elsewhere, but just be aware there is a new leadership form on the curriculum, and I would really encourage you to look out for opportunities to fill that in on the shop floor. So if you overhear a really good bit of communication or a really good handover, just encourage your trainee to get the opportunity to get an assessment on that. Teaching, there's a structured teaching assessment form now, and again that's fairly self-explanatory. Quality improvement, the QIP has gone, which means they need to do quality improvement activity throughout their training. So they need to be involved in a project as a junior trainee, and they will need to lead on a project as a senior trainee. And yet again, we've got a new form, a quality improvement assessment tool, which the supervisor will need to fill in once a year prior to ARCP. And I believe until August next year, so August 2022, those forms will need to be signed off by a local faculty, just until we all get used to doing those. What else do I need to tell you? You will need to have an education faculty if you haven't already, and ideally you'll need to meet and discuss trainees every couple of months. The panel will need to include a minimum of 3 consultants who are educational supervisors, and you'll need to produce a faculty education governance statement after each of those meetings to feed back to the trainee. You only have to do a formalised faculty education governance statement once a year prior to ARCP, and the meetings need to be minuted to ensure they meet the required standards. So hopefully that's not too frightening for you all. And then prior to ARCP, you'll need to have a special governance meeting and as part of the process the education faculty will need to sign off on the clinical specialty learning outcomes, and the educational supervisor should already have done a lot of work on this behind the scenes, and hopefully it should be a case of some final discussion and getting things signed off. And the other decision that the faculty will need to make is the trainee ready to proceed? And hopefully none of that should be a surprise if you've been meeting regularly throughout the year as outlined above. So I hope that's helpful, and I'm going to do a separate video on exams and the curriculum to hopefully complement this one.